All right, today we're jumping into the truly charming and honestly pretty chaotic story of a man and his very, very unusual pet. We're talking about an otter named Mijbil, and his journey is a wild one, taking us all the way from the marshes of Iraq to the completely bewildered streets of London.
So you gotta ask, why an otter, of all things? Well, it all started after the author Gavin Maxwell lost his dog. He was living all alone in this remote cottage in Scotland, and the silence was just a lot. But getting another dog didn't feel quite right. And so, a much more eccentric idea started to bubble up.
Now look, we all know getting any kind of pet is a huge commitment, right? The SPCA lays it out pretty clearly. It's a serious responsibility. But Maxwell, he wasn't just thinking about getting a puppy. No, he was considering a wild animal, which is a whole different level of commitment, way beyond the ordinary. And so, this whole unique experiment didn't start at a local pet shop, not even close. It began thousands and thousands of miles away from his home in Scotland. Maxwell had this vision, right? His home, Chemisphyrna, was literally surrounded by water. He thought, this is perfect. It would be an otter's paradise. And then, the idea really took hold when a friend told him that over in the Tigris marshes of Iraq, otters were as common as mosquitoes. And get this, the locals there often tamed them. And just like that, the seed was planted. So this is where two completely different worlds are about to smash into each other. The plan was to take a creature from the hot, wild marshes of southern Iraq and just drop it right into the heart of London, a city that had absolutely no idea what was about to hit it.
Okay, so Maxwell is in Basra, Iraq, and he's stuck just waiting for his mail to arrive. After 5 long days, it finally shows up, but it doesn't come alone. It comes with a very special and very wriggly delivery.
He gets to his room, and what does he see? 2 Arabs on the floor, and next to them is a sack that's just squirming. They hand him a simple note from his friend, and all it says is, "Here is your otter." And boom, the experiment had officially begun.
But the thing that came out of that sack, it was not some cute, fluffy little animal. It was covered in scales of dried mud, and as Maxwell put it, it looked like a tiny dragon from a medieval fantasy. I mean, how incredible is that? It actually took a whole month before he even saw its real chocolate brown fur. Now, what's really incredible is how quickly this little otter, who he named Mijbil, started to bond with him. The first day, totally aloof, wanted nothing to do with him, but by the second night, he crawled right into bed and was sleeping in the crook of Maxwell's knees. And soon after that, his true, playful, super curious personality just came roaring out. Maxwell also learned a really important thing about otters, and he learned it fast. For them, water has to be moving. Static water is just boring. Mijbil went absolutely wild in the bathtub, and he became obsessed with the faucets. Incredibly, he actually figured out how to turn the taps on all by himself, and you could hear him chittering with frustration when he couldn't get it right. But those peaceful days in Basra couldn't last. Maxwell was dreading the whole process of getting Mijbil back to England. And, well, he was right to be worried. It turned out to be even more chaotic than he could have possibly imagined. The journey kicked off with a pretty horrifying discovery. The airline had insisted that Mijbil travel in this tiny box. So to get him used to it, Maxwell put him inside for just an hour. When he came back, there was this awful silence. And then he saw it. Trickles of dried blood coming from the air holes. Mijbil had completely panicked in that tiny space. He'd torn the box's metal lining to absolute shreds and hurt himself doing it. But with the flight about to leave, Maxwell had no choice. He had to put the poor, miserable, whimpering creature back inside and just race to the airport. So after being rushed onto the plane by some seriously angry officials, Maxwell found this unexpected ally. He confided in the air hostess, and with just incredible compassion, she suggested he just keep the otter on his knee. Can you even imagine the relief he must have felt? Well, that relief lasted for all of 2 seconds, because in a flash, Mijbil was out of the box and streaking down the aisle. Absolute chaos erupted. You've got people screaming, "A rat! A rat!" as Mijbil just vanishes under the legs of some terrified passenger. After that incredibly eventful trip, Mijbil the Otter finally arrived in London. He was ready to begin his new life, trading the Tigris marshes for a city flat. And he adapted with just this remarkable sense of play. He spent up to half an hour at a time completely engrossed in a game he invented himself, using a sloped suitcase lid and a ping pong ball. He'd dash around to ambush the ball as it rolled to the bottom. His wild spirit definitely found ways to come out, even in the city. On their walks, he developed these little rituals, like this compulsive need to jump up onto a low school wall and just gallop its entire 30-yard length, to the complete and utter distraction of all the students and staff inside.
Now, it turns out the average Londoner had absolutely zero frame of reference for an otter. So Maxwell faced this constant barrage of questions, with guesses ranging from the kind of plausible, a squirrel or a beaver, to the truly fantastic, like a hippo, a leopard, or my personal favorite, a brontosaur. But the absolute best question of all came from a worker who was digging a hole in the street. He literally stopped what he was doing, put his hands on his hips, and just stared. And as Maxwell got closer, he spat, glared, and growled, "Here, mister, what is that supposed to be?" As if Maxwell was personally trying to fool him. But this whole journey, from a sack in a rock all the way to the streets of London, it would have this unexpected and lasting impact, one that went way beyond just a few funny stories. Because it turns out, Mijbil was not just any otter. He actually belonged to a race of otters that was previously unknown to science. And so, in honor of the man who brought this incredible creature to the world's attention, zoologists officially named it Lucergale perspectulata maxwelli, or more simply, Maxwell's otter. For Gavin Maxwell, this was so much more than just a quirky pet. This whole experience kicked off what he called an otter fixation, this profound bond and fascination that would go on to shape the entire rest of his life. And so the story of Mijbil kind of leaves us with this thought, what does it teach us when we invite a piece of the wild world into our very structured human lives? It forces us to see everything differently, and it reveals the surprising, chaotic, and just profound ways these connections can totally change us.